Hello everyone, thanks for logging in so far. We're just going to wait probably about 2 or 3 more minutes just for the last few people to attend and we'll get started really soon. Thank you. Hello everybody and thank you for attending. I just hope everybody can hear me okay. If someone could just put into the message box if you can hear me. That's brilliant, guys. Thanks. I'm Gareth Cronin, the local government account manager here at IMGS, and with me is Kira Betty, our FME professional and FME trainer, and Lauren Lucas, our GIS technician. I just want to thank everybody for attending, first of all. I just want to give a quick brief reminder that we will be taking questions throughout, which we'll try to answer. If we can't answer them now, we can get back to you at the end of the session. A brief reminder that we have FME Professional and FME Advanced and FME Server training registration live on our website. Should anybody want to attend, you can just go onto our website and register your details. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Kira Betty to start off.
Thanks, Gareth. I'd just like to welcome everyone. This is actually our first FME webinar of 2016, and I think now that we here have had a few weeks in the office to play with it ourselves, we thought it would be fair that we should share some of the favourite changes in this year's release. Really, we're going to go through what we think is the latest and greatest, so we're not going to cover everything, but we're going to delve into what we have found to be the most useful so far. So for the next half an hour or so, we're going to look at the following agenda. I am going to run through FME Desktop 2016, an overview of the best functionality. I'm going to hand over to Lauren, who's going to demo some of the latest transformation tools. So that's the key transformers for 2016. She's going to publish up to FME Server 2016, and then I'll run through a server overview. And from there, I'm going to do a data download of the workspace that she's published, and then we'll just do a wrap-up and any questions that you may have. So really, I think every year what people are most interested in is probably the new formats and new transformers. So just to run through quickly, we have 11 new formats that are supported in 2016. Some of these are quite specialist. We haven't gotten a chance to use all of these as of yet, but I think to point out some of the interesting ones are probably the Amazon Aurora, which is a MySQL compatible online database. Also, you do have this portal for Arcgis, so it's a new reader and writer for feature services on the Arcgis portal. There's Adobe PRC, which I've heard is really cool. Haven't had a chance to use it, but it's extracting 3D data that can be embedded inside a PDF. The key one for me so far, I think, is the FME Workspace. So this is a reader that allows you to read your own FMW files. So it's really for analyzing metadata. And I'm going to actually look into that once I open Desktop itself. We'll do a quick demo for you. Transformers then. I think we're also particularly... Sorry, I think we're just getting some interference. No, sorry, there was just some interference coming in through there. Just to look at new transformers then, I think at this stage there's probably in excess of maybe 500, so I can never keep count with the exact amount. But this year we've got 43 in total, so there's 13 added to Desktop, and these are the safe software transformers, and there's an additional 30 added into the FME Hub, which is previously known as the FME Store. So the 13 that have been added by safe software, I think some of the key ones are probably the coordinate replacer, so you can replace coordinate values with specified values. There's also that duplicate filter, which has replaced the duplicate remover. And I think both Lauren and I are in agreement with the top three, or the big three transformers for 2013 are the feature writer, the attribute manager, and attribute validator. And I'm going to go into detail in these a little bit later on, and particularly Lauren is going to demo the attribute manager and attribute validator to see how you can implement this in your own workflows. While the readers, writers, transformers, I think people also like to look at the new upgrades year on year. So there's plenty of features that get refreshed and upgraded, and I'm going to look into some of the improvements for 2016, the new interface style, saved connection parameters, transformer versioning, and one-click inspection. So I'm just going to kick off and open up Desktop itself. So if we open up Workbench, you're going to see that there is a new interface as well as some new dialog boxes that pop up. So this is this one, the Welcome to FME Desktop. This is really for new users to help them getting started, some demo videos, some template files that they can download. If you don't want to see that again, just say don't show me again. You'll see that the startup menu has changed, so they've kind of simplified it. It's self-explanatory, new, generate, open, your recent workspaces are all listed below. The interface itself, I think if you're an existing user of Desktop, it'll be hard not to notice that there's a complete change to the interface in 2016. In particular, the new icons along the top of the toolbar and the color has also changed. They've actually done this specifically to help users with color deficiencies. But other than the styling, I think the look of it stays quite the same. There's the Navigator panel, transformer, galleries, canvas, and the toolbar along the top. So you're not going to see much changes in the layout. What is worth mentioning is now that there is a Run tab. So before, you might have remembered in 2015 backwards, there was a Run with prompt icon, and I think a Run with full inspection. You now have a Run drop-down menu, and it's a toggle on, toggle off option. So it's Run with prompt, Run with full inspection, and you can hit these one by one. So that is a new addition. There is also, if you go into your customized toolbar, to help you navigate around larger workspaces, they do have this Show Bookmark Navigator. So I've added that up onto my toolbar, and you should see this drop down now. So I'll need to add some bookmarks. So let's just throw in some text. Once you start adding in bookmarks, they're going to be listed in this drop-down. So it just allows you to jump in quickly to the different sections of your workspace. Obviously, that's for larger workspaces to allow you to move through them with ease. But that's a nice addition that you can pop into your toolbar. The other thing that you're going to notice probably sooner rather than later is that the health file has also been removed from your interface. So let's just throw in our translation log and history. Usually you would see that health file along the bottom. Now it's no longer accessible from here. I personally am still getting used to this. I am an avid reader of the health file. I do not have two screens, so I think the reasoning behind taking it out of the interface itself is to allow people to view the whole health log. If you had a second screen, you can still access it. It'll pop up and you can bring that over to your second screen. It's still linked in and you can pop it. So whatever you select, it still has a link to the health file. So if you do have a separate screen, you can keep it there. But for me at the moment, I actually find it a little bit more awkward to have to continually turn it on and off. So I think it is up for discussion whether it's going to remain outside of the workbench itself. But don't worry, if you need to get it, it's under the health file. You can go into FME Transformers, Workbench, Readers and Writers. And obviously it's still, when you click the health button, it's still going to pop up. Although a little bit more slowly, I do think. So those are kind of the key changes in the interface itself. So we were discussing the new Readers and Writers, and I really do like the new Fmw Reader. So we'll just have a quick look at that. This is your own workspaces. I don't know if you'd have need to review your workspaces, you know, every month, every 6 months, but maybe once a year you might do this type of analysis before the new release of FME, and you might want to look at the metadata of your existing workspaces. So if I come in, I can read any number, so you could input all of your existing workspaces. It's going to scan these and it's going to come back with a list of tables of metadata. So you can select what is useful to you. I'll just select them all at the moment and we'll just do a quick inspection. So connect my inspectors. I'm going to run it out to the 2016 inspector. And it should pop up for us now. So once it's into the data inspector, you can see now it's not a spatial view, this is just a non-spatial tables, but the ones to kind of point out to you are file properties. So you can get a list of your workspaces and their names, and what I thought was interesting is it has the creation date, the date it was last modified, and the date it was run. So if you do want to see when it was last used or when it was last edited, you can get that information quite easily. There's different things like readers. So I can get a list of all the readers that have been used within those workspaces. So if you want to get counts of the data that you're reading most often or writing, you can get it from the Readers and Writers tab. Each one of these IDs, workspace ID, will relate back to a particular workspace. So that's how you will link things together with those unique ID numbers. So 1 was for my content restructuring, 2 was coordinate systems, and then they'll link to each other within each of these tabs. I think statistics then, this is probably my favorite of all because it has this attribute number of out-of-date transformers. So if you yearly before the new release of 2016 want to come in and assess all your workspaces to see which workspaces are going to be out of date in 2016, I think it's quite handy. So I can assess that only one workspace, number 1, which is my content restructuring, has an out-of-date transformer. So it'll be worthwhile me updating this workspace before I run it in 2016, whereas I know the previous 2 are good to go. So I think things like that can be quite useful. You mightn't have a need to use it all the time, but when you do, it's going to really improve how you read the metadata of your workspaces.
Helps save a lot of time when you're trying to figure out what's going on.
Exactly, yeah. Then really speaking about upgrades, and I think, I don't know, for me I think this is probably one of the best things that they have introduced in 2016. Let me go to my... So if I just pull up an older workspace that I have, so I know that some of the transformers are out of date, and we can just assess how you can update your transformers and upgrade them to the most recent version available. So here we just have a workspace reading in some lines, writing out. It really doesn't matter what it's doing. It's just to point out that once there is a transformer that is out of date, this little icon appears over here in the Navigator, upgradable transformers. So you can drop it down and you get a list of, there's 8 transformers in this workspace that are out of date. So the nice little thing about it is it gives you the current version that's there. So the 3D point replacer, version 1 is replaced by the vertex creator. So the 3D point replacer no longer exists. We need to update it with the vertex creator. There's ones that are much older, such as, let's see, point connector. Yeah, so the point connector that I have here is on version 1. The latest version is version 3, and so on. So it just gives you an idea of what you need to update. You don't necessarily have to update these for your workspace to run. You know, it might be good practice for you if you want to yearly, if you're going to be running this workspace over and over again, to keep up to date with the most recent transformer. But if the workspace runs without having to update, that's fine. By updating, you're going to be including some of the new functionality that has been made available. So to update, all you need to do is go into the transformer itself, right-click, upgrade transformer. So it's not an automatic update of all your transformers. SAFE have done this consciously because they actually want you to go in and review the change. There might be new ports that are added, and you might have to make up some new connections or make some decisions. So they haven't done an automatic upgrade across the board. You're going to have to individually check each one. It gives you a warning message, select yes. And then what you see is side by side you have version 1 of the 3D point replacer, and this is what it's going to be replaced with, the vertex creator. So the old functionality and parameters are listed with the new. I think the nice thing about it is once I select OK, I don't have to go back in and input any of the parameters that I had defined previously. Whereas before, if you had been doing upgrades, you have to delete, go back and review what you had in the old transformer and place it into the new transformer. This is going to automatically do it for you. You can hit the Show Changes button, and it'll give you a list of exactly what it changed. So you can see they've added a rejected port. There's some new modes have been added, so replace point at index, insert point at index, and there's a rejection code attribute. So once you click OK, that's it. Now we've got a vertex creator rather than 3D point replacer. So it's really easy, upgrade transformer. You can check the changes or just select OK. So you see this new attribute with the value of 1. If oh, that one doesn't need to be upgraded. If we go to the sorter, maybe. Yeah. If you go to the sorter, we've specified some information in the attribute and the parameters. Upgrade transformer, yes. Okay. When I look back, I don't have to input that information again. It's retained what I have specified. So it's really, really useful. And you can see now I have only 5 upgradable transformers left. So once you've completed, you can save, and you know that this workspace is fully set to run in 2016. So I do really like that, because I find, particularly even from a support point of view, it can be quite difficult when you get other people's workspaces and you're using 2016 and they might have been using 2013, and I no longer have a copy of 2013 and I need to upgrade. I think that's, from our point of view, is going to be useful for us. Okay, so the rejected port then. People might have seen and noticed the rejected port in 2015. It's not new to 2016, but they've kind of made it more consistent across the board. I like the rejected port. It makes our lives a lot easier because we don't have to go looking for missing data. So you should see the rejected port on a lot more transformers these days. So it's this guy down the end, rejected. So if I just hit run, let the data run through, you can see immediately that things are being rejected. Now, I didn't even have to connect in Inspector there. I didn't have to have a flow of data. It's automatically picking up and highlighting in red that there's something gone wrong here, and it's rejecting information. So if I want to view that, all I need to do is right-click and say Inspect Features. So what is new to 2016 is now that they've added this new code, FME rejection code, onto your rejected features. So if I select, if you come over here, you should see, oh yeah, FME rejection code, invalid clipper geometry type. So it's to give you an idea of why that clipper has rejected the data. So it's telling me that the geometry type is invalid for a clipper. So if I go back, I can see that I've put address points into the clipper. Now if we're going to clip something, it should be an area. So these are actually inverted, which happens quite a lot when using the clipper. So if I was to rerun that, area should be my clipper, address points are my clippee, so I'm going to clip the address points to the area. If I run that this time, we should start seeing them coming out through the insight port. So now we get the data that has been placed inside that area. So that's the parks in that particular data set. So really it's just to note that that FME rejection code is there. It's going to help you locate why things have gone wrong, and it allows you to fix things a lot more easier. So it's really for debugging your workspaces. So now that we're in the data inspector, I think it's worth pointing out, let me just add a writer in here. If I run that again, this guy here, and it shouldn't be grayed out. I'm not sure what's gone wrong there, but the inspect icon should pop up just now above that, pop up above your feature type. So it's really to allow you to inspect. Let me see if I can open up an older one. Find my writer. Yeah, it's there on that one. So if I zoom in, you should now see that little inspect icon. So this is a one-point click into your data inspector. So once I click, it'll open up, and you'll notice I no longer have to still input the information about the location and file of where that is. So it's just a handier method of opening up data sets. So just note that is there. I'm still forgetting that you can access your data through the inspect icon. So make sure to make use of that, because it's kind of a quick win. It's quite time effective in the long run. Other things within the inspector, you can get your background maps, which is now available, is your WMS, so your web map service. That's new to 2016. So if you, and I say a lot of you do have a WMS, you can specify the connection details here, and you can use that for your background mappings. If you don't, there are other options for you here, and I quite often like to use the Openstreetmap. If I add that, you'll see the difference in 2016. Just let it load for a minute. It automatically is included, whereas in 2015 I would have had to open a new tab, and then I would have seen it. Now I can turn it off and on within the same tab that I have opened, so I could turn that off again when it's getting in your way, and then it'll automatically update. So I think that's nice as well. I think a good thing to point out is, and you may have noticed if you are a universal viewer user, it has been completely removed from 2016. So everybody should be using the data inspector by now, and if you're not, you're going to be forced to, because you will not find the universal viewer in 2016. The one bit of functionality that was in the universal viewer that they only brought over this year is the mark location. So you can kind of see that little dot. If you click anywhere on your canvas now, you can set mark location. So it's kind of like bookmarking an area for later use. So if I specify mark location and I move off, you know, if this is a larger data set of Ireland and you've moved halfway across the country and you want to get back to review that previous area, you can just go to Tools, Mark Location, Locate, and you'll jump back in. So there's other options there in that Mark Locate. You can set a radius around your point. You can set colors, apply, OK. And I think the nice thing is if I open a new tab and I specify some data, there we go. So if I put anything in here, let's put some Irish data in. There's actually quite a few records in that one. I should have picked a smaller one. But it's going to still persist. That point that I have placed over in Vancouver in Canada is still going to be there, and I can jump to it. So if you are rerunning a workspace and you found a building polygon, a point, and you've made a change to it, and then you want to jump back to that, you can still come in to your new workspace, go into your Mark Locate, and it's brought me back way over the other side of the world. So it is there until you turn it off in each of your additional tabs. Database connections then. Let's open database. Once again, database connections, I'd say most of you would know that they are not new to 2016. They were available from 2015, but they have made them more consistent, and a lot more of your databases should be accessible through this database connection. So rather than specifying the name, the username, the details every single time, you now have a named database. So you can see here I have a list of databases that I have already connected to, and I can select from this list or I can add a new database connection. So let's do this. For the first time you connect to a database, let's just call it a webinar, you can specify your connection details. Now these are stored locally, so if you were to pass that on to another user in your organization, they're not going to be able to use that. It is your connection in, and they won't be able to see passwords or anything. So connection to test, and we'll just set our password. So let's test to see that that's going to connect. It has, and I'm going to save.
That's really useful because I find sometimes, when you go back to your database, you haven't used them in a while, and you're like, oh,
yeah, you don't remember the password. Yes, exactly. Like it is quite useful. So when I come in here now, you'll see that my new connection webinar has been added. So from now on till next year, I can connect into that with ease without having to put in usernames and passwords. And more importantly, I think when your password does change, you have only got to change it in one location, which is from your FME options, where you have all your database connections listed. So you can come in here and edit and say, okay, the password has now changed to ... save, and all your workspaces that have connected to webinar, your test database, will now pick up that new connection. So it saves you time in the long run, and you won't have to go around changing all your workspaces one by one. So I think there's a question coming through
from Judith.
Yes.
So is it possible to remove old or incorrect connections?
What's, I don't know,
from the database connections, I'm guessing?
Yeah, you can delete. I'd say that's probably just what you mean from here. If I go up into FME options, and you see here I can just remove, so I could take out that one and just delete the connection entirely. So I'd say that might be what you're asking. If not, throw me back another question, or you can contact us later, and I can get you some details on. That is? Okay, so I just think that connections, it's very useful, particularly for anybody who has to deal with databases. While we're on databases, I think this is also great. The SQL Executor has had an update this year. So I'm just going to throw it in. I think I've got added Executor. There it is. So your SQL Executor, so you can run queries on your SQL databases. So if we just specify, I'm going to query my SQL Server database. I'm going to use the connection I have just created, so it's my test database. I'm going to come into my SQL statement, and I'm going to create one. You'll see now that you have your database tables, So this is a list of tables within that database. If I right-click on these, FME have now set up these generate scripts, so these will automatically populate. So I could select agricultural, for example, and say script as duplicate. So select all into agricultural, copy from agricultural. So I'm going to create a copy of the agricultural table, and I can just hit run, say yes. The execution was successful. So now I've created a copy of the initial table. You'll notice I didn't even have to run Workspace itself. I didn't have to embed that transformer into a workflow. I'm running this externally from the workflow itself, and I just think it's actually quite a nice addition. If you need to get in and look at your database, make some changes, you can do that without creating a workflow itself. So I can also just drop that table. Obviously be careful, and that's why they throw up this message, data loss possible because I'm dropping. We say yes, and it's removed that table. So I like that a lot about the SQL Executor. That's a nice change that they've made.
Yeah, they're really integrating a lot of the database.
Yeah, they've made huge changes on databases.
Yeah, really good, really good.
So I think the last thing I'm going to cover before I hand over to Lauren is just that feature writer, which is one of the big three transformers. So feature writer, attribute manager, attribute validator are our three recommendations. The feature writer, you know, people might ask, well, what is the need for a feature writer? Why do you want to write out data at a midpoint of a translation? I think initially this is something that's come on board this year. Maybe in a year's time, a lot of people are going to be using the feature writer because they're going to bring in some new capabilities. But the idea is it's the exact same as the writer, and you'll see when you come into the parameters, it looks identical. I can come in here and specify that I want map info, where my location is going to be, the table names, what attributes I'm going to use. You're going to be very familiar with that writer dialog box. So that is all set in there. The only difference is I can continue on and I can put something like an FTP caller after the data has been written out. So the data will be written at this point, and then it'll continue on. So if you have an FTP site that you want to push your data up to, you can do this as soon as the data has been written, rather than calling a second workspace that you may have created to extract that data from a certain location and then push it up. So it's things like the FTP caller, or maybe more interestingly, they have an email transformer, which is rumored to be coming out in 2016.1. It may not be in 2016.1, it might be later towards the year, but 2016.1 is out in April. So the emailer, people may know you can email from FME, but it's from FME Server or it's through the Python transformer. They are looking to create an emailer, which then you could just throw in an emailer to let you know or let others know that that data is now available. So I think down the line we might see a lot more of the feature writer. And when you think about it, the feature writer has the potential to remove writers completely from FME, which a lot of people think is a scary prospect, to completely remove them. But that might be the way it goes, so that you have one transformer that will deal with all your writing needs. So it's a key one to look out for in the future. That's why we didn't want to skip past it. I'm going to hand you over now to Lauren because she's going to demo the attribute manager and validator for you. I'll just close down some of these so I don't start confusing. Thank you. Rid. That one.
Okay, great.
No.
Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I think I know most of the people on the call this afternoon, but for those who don't know, my name is Lauren. I'm the GIS technician here at IMGS. So what I'm going to show you today, actually one thing I wanted to mention was that Kira mentioned the FME Hub earlier on at the start of her presentation, and that is now, so that's taken over from the FME store. So if you're interested in that, if you go on to imgs.ie and visit our blog, there is some details in our latest blog about the FME Hub and some nice things that you can find there. So I'm going to show you a quality check workspace. So we're going to take some, let's see where we are here now. So we're going to take some view directory details for Louds, and we are going to we are going to use the attribute validator and the attribute manager to manipulate that data and try and clean it up a little bit, maybe check some of the attributes that are in there, make sure that they are how we want them to be, and then we are going to use the manager to try and do some of the functionality that you would find for attributes. So first thing I'm going to show you is what the attribute manager is actually replacing. It is very nifty, I have to say now. I was using it a lot over the last 2 days, and it's quite handy for controlling your attributes and all of the functions that you might want to do to them. So here you see there is an attribute copier, an attribute remover, attribute keeper, attribute renamer, list renamer, attribute creator, which also encompasses expression evaluator, area calculator, string concatenator, and attribute rounder. Try saying all that in one breath. So basically all of those functions are replaced by the attribute manager. It is a really nifty piece of kit, and I'm going to go into it later on and show you how I used it for this workspace. But first I'm going to show you the attribute validator. So we take our address point for loud, and we're going to put it into an attribute validator. Now these attribute validators, they were described to us actually by the manager for support from SAFE as an amplifier of the good and the bad. So, you know, if you want to validate your data, this is really the transformer for you. So if I just click into it here. So first thing I want to check is that the county attribute, and I want to check it against case. Now there are a number of different validation rules that you can check. So you can say type, in range, maximum length, not null. We're going to use a couple of these throughout this workspace. So in this case, I want to check about the case, and I want to say that it's full title case. You can have that as you want it to be all lowercase, uppercase, but I want it to be full title case. So that's the first, maybe I just zoom in there, see if you guys can see a little bit better. So that's what I'm doing with that first validator. Now I can move, this is what I was talking about if you've got bad data in there. So when it's failed, I can also fix it on the fly. I don't have to write it out and say, no, that didn't work. I don't have to write out a separate thing. I can fix it on the go. So here I'm using a string case changer to make sure that any of the county attributes that aren't in full title case get changed to that. So the second attribute validator is going to check that the address line is not null, because we would hope that everybody would have the first line of an address. And we're also going to check that the building ID is unique. Now for anybody that's worked with geodirectory data, they know that this is not going to be the case, because you may have an apartment building that would have one building ID but multiple address point IDs. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to show that you could send out those address point IDs and make sure that if the building ID is not unique, that the address point ID is. So it's just another way of checking your data. So we send that through here to a test filter. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to pick out error codes from the addresses. Now the updated error code, or the updated geodirectory data does have an error code field, but this is an older data set, so I wanted to just pick out from the address lines where the error code is. And maybe if I just show you in the inspector real quick. So if I just show you quickly here, you can see that the error code is split between multiple lines. So some have it in address line 5, some have it in line 6. So we want to try and extract that information from there. So the first thing that we've done is we've checked lines 4, 5, and 6 and put them through error code. That's the first test filter that we have done, and then we have checked each of those, and we want to make sure that address line, in the first instance, that address line 4 takes out anything that has 7 characters, because we know the error code is 7 characters, and as we just saw in the inspector, in this data set there has been no space added between those prefix and the numbers afterwards. So we know that it's going to be 7 characters long. So what we've done here is we've added in one for address line 5, one for address line 6. Now when we ran this workspace, we found that that was sufficient, but you can keep going if you find that there are error codes in other fields. So here we're able to run it out to an inspector and see if there were any points that had failed all of those validators, which there in this instance there weren't. So what we then did was we output those to attribute managers. Now we output them to 3 separate attribute managers on purpose, because what we wanted to do, we wanted to combine the error codes that passed from each address line 4, 5, and 6. We wanted to pass them into the same attribute field. So I'll just open up Attribute Manager now and give you a quick overview. So the Attribute Manager, as I said, is really great. I have to say it's probably my favorite thing about 2016 so far. So first of all, I'll just show you what you can do with each attribute. So there's a drop down here. You can remove, rename, you can do nothing, you can set a value, or you can set a default value.
And just to say, that's actually quite novel, the way it picks up automatically all the attributes, whereas you probably all remember that you'd have to usually specify every attribute you want to change. It picks them all up and automatically says you don't want to change it, and it's only you only edit what you want to change. But it's nice that you don't have to go in and specify a number of attributes. I think that's nice. It's probably the way FME is going in the future, that it picks up automatically.
Absolutely. So the first thing we did was we removed address lines 7, 8, and 9 because we decided we weren't interested in them. And we also, let's say, if we wanted to make sure that every single address that went through the system had the county at the end of it, we could go and we could set address line 10 and say we want that to be the value of county. So that's just an example of where you can set a value. So if I go in here, you can set it to any of the attributes that are there. Okay, so what we did was we added in a field here called edited by, and we set a default value for IMGS. We were also able to put in a date field and a timestamp. So this timestamp is great. You can put it in through the Open Text Editor, which is really good because if you don't want to hard code your data, you can use this for advanced attribute editing. So it's got some really nice functions in here. So even with the FME feature functions, you can do some count, you can do geometry type, number of coordinates. So I found that quite useful. And also there's some good string functions in there as well, like format, full title case, pad left, pad right. So there's some really nice pieces in there. And if anybody's actually interested in that, we would be interested to hear from you, and we might maybe put together a blog on this. So let us know if you're interested.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
In hearing about the string editor. So the field that we put in for error code, we titled it error code, and in this attribute manager we added in all the results from our validator from address line 4. So they would be the past values that came through the validator. So we did the same here, where in the error code field we added in address line 5, and the same for address line 6. Again, these are all the points that would have passed those validation rules. Now, I, as a matter of good practice, would always put in a geometry validation for quality checking, especially if you're working with third-party data sources, and if you're redistributing this data throughout your organization, you want to make sure that the geometry is correct and that you can stand over it. So it's got 13 types of validation. It'll check for duplicate points, intersecting lines, and so on. So I think it's just a good practice to put that in. So then over here, what I have done now, so I've done a nice bit of quality checking on that data there, but I want to publish that up to Server so that other users in my organization can run that. But I think it would be nice if they could have a little bit more control over the data that goes in. So what we're going to do is we're going to set some publish parameters in this workspace to allow them to decide what area that they want to get that data from and maybe what format they want it in. So here we've put together just some clipping. So it's taken the townland polygons, it's reprojected them, and we've applied a tester with a published parameter for area of interest. So it'll mean that on the server the user can go and it can select the townland that they wish to get their information from. Then we've clipped that and we've written that out to a data set. So if I just go over here and show you the published parameters that we've set. So one of the parameters we've set is the file format, so they can have it in shapefile, tab, CAD, microstation. We've also set some coordinates because that might be useful for some people that are getting their data either in different coordinate systems or would like to distribute it into different coordinate systems, and also the area of interest. So you can see here that there's a full list of the townlands for Louth. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run this workspace. Okay, great, so that's run for me. So that's what it's after now for me in the end, so I'm happy with that. So I can go now and publish that up to Server. So I can go and connect to my server. watch out for that. It always copies in the HTTP. I'm sure people have had experience with that. I know I always get stuck with it. Put in my details. Just test that connection. Oh, okay. There's definitely something with my link tab is working around. Oh, there we go. Password. Okay, so I can put it into the repository that I like. So I've got a webinar repository there, and I'm going to upload the data files as well. So I can go ahead and select those files if I wish. If you wanted to, what you can do is you can upload your workspace without data files, and you can set data sources in FME Server by uploading them, so that can be quite useful as well. But for the moment, we're going to just upload the data files. Okay, so yep, I want a data download service, and that's what I'm going to publish to FME Server. Okay, so now I'm going to hand you back over to Karen. She's going to bring me through some of the upgrades in FME 2016 service.
Thanks, Lauren. I'm just going to look at Server itself, and Lauren has already logged in there. I'm just going to really brief, kind of 5-minute overview of Server, and I'm going to download the data through FME Server that the workspace that Lauren has just published up. So if you look at FME Server, I think it depends which release you've been, but from last year or the last 2 years to this year, I think it's quite an advancement on the look and feel. They've updated it. I think it's a lot nicer, the user interface. They've gone green, and I think it's a lot more aesthetic than the previous oranges and yellows that they have had. The homepage has completely changed. So it's been set up that it's more useful for you as users to access your workspaces, your published workspaces, and your last run. So instead of having to go through repositories to find information, they've just made it easier. So there's this favorite workspaces tab, so you can click, and just to show you, if we go into anything, samples, this little icon here. So if you highlight that yellow, when you go back to your home page, you should now have that listing there in your favorite workspaces. So if you're going to run something daily, you might want to throw it in here. The last published workspaces, so you can see this webinar quality check, which Lauren has just published up a minute ago, and the last workspaces that were run. So I think that new user interface is quite nice. Also, something that would have changed is if we go into manage our jobs. Anybody who uses Server and works in an organization where many people use it, it's nice to have this advanced browsing and being able to look for your jobs. Instead of having to go through pages and pages to find out what jobs you have run, you could just say just me, and then it'll define that list and give you only the workspaces that you and jobs that you have run. So it's just a little addition like that. It goes a long way when you have 700 pages and you're just trying to find something you ran 3 days ago. It helps a lot. So I think adding that job search is key. The biggest change, I think, from our perspective in IMGS is really the licensing update. Now, it mightn't matter to everybody who hasn't seen the old system, but just to note, if you use Server on, the licensing has completely changed. They've got rid of their old licensing, Flex LM. So it's nice, and I'd say I can speak for both of us when we breathed a collective sigh of relief when we saw that that had disappeared, because now it's a 10-second installation where it's just a matter of saying request license, you input your information, and it'll automatically update and post that license to here. So it is a lot easier.
It's also good, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the trials are actually longer now when you get the license online.
So anyone who does want to trial Server themselves, you can download it, and if you come in to request license, if you leave this blank, you'll get an evaluation license. And is it 7? The first one is?
I think the first one's 7 days.
First one's 7 days, but they'll send you an email, and if you respond to that, they'll give you a 60-day license. So that's a good amount of time if you wanted to go through and review Server and see what kind of types of things you can get done on it. So it's very easy for you now to install and license yourself if you want just to do a trial of server.
I also think as well that it might be important there might be some people out there that would have concerns around third-party licensing software, say if they're using other software products on that server.
Yeah,
I know we had a couple of people that were saying, they couldn't use, say, FlexLM with certain versions, they couldn't use it with, say, Arcgis, or they couldn't use Arcgis and the FME together on the same LM tool. So this really resolves that issue.
Okay, so I'll just go in and run the workspace that Lauren has published up here for me, so I know that I now have this available. You can see if you've used Server previously, they've gotten rid of this options where you'd have to go through different pages. Now it's just a drop-down list. You pick your repository. Mine is webinar. I pick the workspace. There's only one workspace available to me. It's a data download service. Now here you can see these published parameters that Lauren was just discussing. She has made available for me as the end user to choose the format. So I have control, I have 4 options. So I can say, well, I need that information in map info. The coordinate system, so I have ITM, Irish grid, or I have lat long, so I can specify that I want it in ITM, and then I can select my townlands. So that's going to be a drop-down list of all the townlands, and this was just a Louth data set, so all the townlands in Louth. You can select multiple if you wish, or just one single. And these are just the source information, so I don't need to touch that. So if I'm going to run this now, I would expect that I'm going to have this file delivered to me. So it'll run away in the background. I can leave this page, that's no issue. It's still going to continue running. It's not going to stop it, but I know this is a short data download, so it should pop up for me in a URL, so you can see translation successful, number of features written. It's given me 537 address points in term and second, I think it was. I can hit that data download. Now usually if I moved off that data download page, that URL would have been lost and you'd have to go to the depths of your computer to find out where that was actually downloaded to. You can now, if you go into any of your jobs, go back to the last job that you had run in 2016, they connected that URL to your job, so it's always accessible. So I can still download it now.
That's great, especially if you're running some big workspaces, and you don't want to have to go and try and run them again. It's take 10, 15 minutes. That's really useful.
So now I have a data download. I'll just open one I unzipped previously. So you'll see there's what I have just done, my data download. Here's one from earlier. So just open it up. Actually, no, let's just extract this because I think there might have been a new change. So extract all. There we go. Yes. And replace. Do this for all. Okay. Now we'll just open that in our 2016. And this is the QC that Lauren had done previously. And you should see some changes that she had made to the attributes. So she didn't touch the geometry bar doing a check on cleaning it up, but there should now be some new information here, like I think we're alphabetical, so it was, okay, well there's error code. So she had added in, she'd hard coded that it was IMGS that edited, she time stamped it and put a date on it. She brought all those error codes from the multiple address fields that were split out and she put it into a single error code field. And I think she also removed some of the unnecessary empty attributes, so address line 6, 7, 8. And so on. So really the attribute manager allows you to do a lot of editing related to your attributes in one transformer, and that just proves just some of the kind of things that you can get done with those transformers and how easy it is then to publish up to server and do a data download. I think that's it really. It's a whirlwind through what we thought was the best additions for, let me pop up here so you can see, for 2016. I hope if you haven't already downloaded 2016, you will do so and you'll start getting working with some of those functionalities and transformers we've pointed out. So if there's any questions, you can forward them to us. If you think of anything later on or when you've downloaded it, you can still contact us. It's support at IMGS if you want to contact the support team. If you have any sales queries or queries relating to training, It's Gareth that you speak to, so it's gcronin@imgs.ie. And just to point out while I have you all here, if anybody wants to come along to our IMGS 2016 annual conference, there will be some FME training in the afternoon. We will keep an eye on Twitter and LinkedIn, and we'll get the details of exactly what we're covering in the FME training, but that's on the 24th of May, and you can register for that on our website. Same with the FME World Tour. Anyone who's an FME user in Ireland should be attending this. We have Ken Bragg coming over from France, as he does every year, so he's one of the representatives from Safe Software. Yeah, he is our Safer this year and every year. So we're going to be in Dublin on the 27th of June in the Ashton Hotel, and Belfast in the Mount on the 28th. So you can register for both those events now on our website. So if there isn't any questions,
yeah, I think we can hang around for a minute. If
yeah, we can hang on, but anything that comes to us, or if it comes to you later, you can contact us at support@IMGS. Thanks, guys.
Another point maybe is that there is the 2016, as Claire mentioned, the 2016.1 release coming out in April, and there seems like there is actually going to be a good bit in it. There's normally isn't.
Yeah, well, I think the word from Safe is it's a new release in itself. It's nearly a FME 2017. There's that much in it. It could be a new release. So I think it's worth downloading. That's coming, I think, April 6th is the date they're giving. So you might want to hold off if you haven't downloaded and download the 16.1 rather than having to do 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, I'm testing some of the beta stuff in 2016.1, and I won't give anything away because we'll probably cover a lot of stuff on the FME World Tour. But it's good. I think it's really exciting what they're doing at the moment. So. Okay, guys, so we have no questions that have come in there, so we are going to let you go, but please feel free to email us at support@imgs.ie, or you can go ahead and email Gareth if you're interested in training at gcronin@imgs.ie. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
We hope to see you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.